Hey guys, today we're looking back at some of your favourite relationship drama stories from last year. Imagine you're at work. It's been a long, boring, monotonous day, and you're basically just waiting the clock out. Then a delicious opportunity plops right into your lap. I helped someone get revenge on their gold-digging boyfriend. Post by Nomasani5523. So, a few years ago, I worked at the front desk of a large luxury hotel. The hotel I worked at was located really close to the downtown area, so we got a large number of young, very wealthy business people who loved to party. I usually worked the second and third shifts, which meant I got to see a ton of drunken hookups, breakups, cheating, hookers and more. This particular one though, this one I will never forget. I was working at the desk when a group of young, well-dressed men came walking in. They'd clearly all been drinking, but weren't so drunk that they couldn't walk straight or hold a conversation. So one of them comes up to me and tells me that while he and his friends were at a bar, a woman was hitting on him, and even though he told her no multiple times, she wouldn't stop. He and his friends left, and it wasn't until they got into an Uber that he realised that he didn't have his room key anymore. He thinks she took it, and he's concerned that she may come up to his room. He asks that I deactivate his keys, and if she does come up to the hotel, to not let her in. As he was telling me all of this, it just didn't sit right with me. He and his friends were all grinning about it and snickering to one another. Then he gave a clear description of her, without being asked. Told me her height, body shape, hair colour and style, and the kind of dress she was wearing, all while saying it in a mocking tone. Now, this could have easily been because he thought the whole thing was ridiculous, or he was too drunk to take it seriously, but it just didn't sound right to me. Either way, I did as I was trained to do in that situation. I pulled up his reservation, deactivated the keys as requested, made him a new set, and even offered to move him to a new room if that would make him feel more comfortable. He and his buddies laughed a little at that, but he declined, took the keys, and off they went to their room. About an hour or so later, the woman he described showed up. Now, by this point, my relief for the night had also shown up and was sitting at the front desk while I was in the back office counting down my cash drawer. I hadn't had a chance to tell him about the woman. Just as I'm walking out of the back office with my bag and about to leave, I see my coworker buzz the doors open and the woman comes rushing in. She cuts through the lobby and runs down the hall to the elevators. She was barefoot, holding her heels in her hand, and knew exactly where she was going. I rushed up to him and told him what the man from earlier had told me about her. My coworker looked at me confused. He then pointed to the screen that had the reservation pulled up and told me that when the woman arrived, she went to use the room keys and they didn't work, so he'd asked for a room number and last name. She gave both, and her name is on the reservation. I looked at the reservation, and down in the notes, a woman's name was indeed listed. I was confused and thought maybe she wasn't the same woman he was talking about. But to be on the safe side, I called him in his room and told him about the situation and that we'd allowed a woman, fitting the description he'd given, to enter the building because she'd confirmed that her name was on the room. He laughed and said he forgot her name was on the room and asked me to remove it. I was super confused now, and to make sure, I asked, "Sir, just to be clear, the woman you met at the bar tonight was with you at check-in hours ago and was allowed keys then, but now she is not?" Him, laughing to all his friends in the room. "Oh, guys, I confused the poor girl." Gets back on the phone with me. "Yes, sweetheart, she's banned from the room. Don't worry about the other details, just take her name off." Me. "I see. Then, if she isn't going to be on the room anymore, would you like us to call the police and have her removed from the property?" Him. "Whoa, that's going a bit far there. Don't worry, she'll get the hint soon enough." We ended the call there, and I got really suspicious of this. I told my coworker to not do anything, and that I was going to stick around for a bit to see if anything happened. A short time later, the woman came off the elevator, pouring tears, sobbing while on the phone with someone. She sat down in our lobby, and my coworker and I tried to look busy while eavesdropping hard on her phone call. She was sobbing on the phone to her mum and sister, From what she told them, she was invited to spend the week with her boyfriend, meeting all of his old college buddies. This was the first night, and they'd all met up for dinner and drinks. After a bit, she went to the restroom, and when she came back, she caught her boyfriend hitting on another woman. Apparently his friends had all bet that he wouldn't. When she confronted him, pissed off, he called her a bunch of names and he humiliated her in front of his friends and the entire bar. All his friends had joined in on mocking her, and he threw in her face that she was nothing without him and dumped her right there. He and his friends then took an Uber back and left her stranded at the bar with no money and no way to get back. She had to use her phone's GPS and walk back to the hotel from the bar, barefoot because she'd been wearing heels and the hotel was 2 miles away. She was asking her mum and sister for help as he wouldn't let her back into the room to get her luggage or her wallet. My heart broke. I felt horrible. I'd helped this guy treat this poor woman like dirt, and now he and all his friends were up there laughing at her while she was sitting in our lobby, sobbing and with nothing. I grabbed a bottle of water and brought it to her. I told her that I couldn't help but overhear the conversation and was very sorry for her situation and asked if she'd like us to help. I informed her that if he was keeping her from getting her things, we could call the police and have them force him to hand them over so she could leave if she wanted to. Or if she wanted to let her mum or sister pay for a room, we'd be happy to give her a very low rate for a room, far away from him. She thanked me, took the water, and tried to calm down. She talked to me about what was happening and what her options were. Eventually, she decided to stay in the hotel for the night and figure out the rest tomorrow. When we got to the desk, she asked me to try and run her credit card to see if there was enough on it for another room. I asked her what she meant by another room. And then she tells me it was actually her who was paying for the room that her cheating ex was in. That his name is on the room because he booked it, but it was her card paying for everything. This intrigued me. I asked why she was paying for the room if it was in his name. Then she told me she's the one with the job, not him. That he hasn't been able to find a job in his field since graduating from college and had essentially been living off his parents' money. But just after they started dating, his parents cut him off, so he's been living off of her money. That's why she was so upset and confused by how he's been acting all night. He was so sweet back home, but since he'd met up with his friends, he'd done a full 180 and hadn't been the same guy the entire time. I wanted to tell her that it was obvious he was just using her for the money, and that he would probably blame his friends for all of this and try to get back with her later on. But I doubted she'd have listened to me, or wanted a complete stranger butting in on her personal life like that. So instead, I offered up a piece of sweet revenge. I informed her that, considering she's the one paying for the room, if she could confirm that it's her card on file with some sort of photo ID, then she could, if she wanted to, kick him out of the room and keep it all to herself. And considering how poorly her night has been, if she was indeed able to prove that she's the one paying for the room, then I'd be more than happy to provide her with the biggest luxury upgrade we could offer. Largest suite we had, full hotel amenity access. I even had my coworker fish out a bowl of champagne and some fresh strawberries to have sent up to her room, all free of charge. She was taken aback by the offer and seemed tempted, but looked like she was about to say no. So I quickly added that since she'd be upgrading her room, we'd have to move her things from her current room into a new room. That meant that the room she was currently listed in would need to be vacated immediately. And if anyone tried to remain in the room afterwards, they'd have to pay for the room or be escorted off the property. She thought about it, then pulled up her card's banking app and showed me the screen. It had a photo of her, her full name, the card's full number, and the hold from our hotel for the room. She asked if that worked. It was good enough for me. I quickly upgraded her, moved everything across in the system, and before I could say a word to my coworker, he was already grabbing a set of master keys, a bell cart, and asking what her luggage looked like. He said he'd go get it for her, so she wouldn't have to deal with her ex again. She smiled and told him which ones were hers and that she hadn't unpacked yet. My coworker ran down to the elevators to get her things, Well, I made her a new set of keys and sent her off to a new room. Once she got into the elevator, my phone at the desk started to ring. It was her ex-boyfriend, and he was very angry that my coworker had just entered the room and was taking her things. I calmly explained that I can't give out the private information of any of our guests, and if he'd like to remain in the room, he will need to pay for it, as there's no longer a method of payment on his room. He blew up. He was making a ton of demands, and at the same time, yelling at my coworker to stop what he's doing. But it was obvious from the way he was yelling at him that my coworker wasn't listening. I could even hear the guy's friends telling him to chill out and just pay for the room. I then told him I'd give him a courtesy 10 minutes to make a decision, at which point, if he doesn't have payment ready, then he must vacate the building, or we'll be forced to call the authorities and have him evicted. He continued to yell at me. He screamed, swore, and threatened for a solid minute before taking a breath. I then told him that he now has 9 minutes remaining and asked if he'd made a decision yet. He hung up on me. 9 minutes later, I called the room and he didn't answer. I called again, no answer. I called a third time. He picked up, then immediately hung up. At this point, I called the police and told them what's going on. The police arrived and we went up to the room together. When the ex-boyfriend and his friends saw the cops, they went white. The cops explained that they were being evicted. The ex-boyfriend tried talking to me, but the cops stopped him and told him to only talk to them. I'd mentioned his attitude on the phone. By now, the ex-boyfriend's friends were all offering to pay for the room, and the cops looked to me and asked if that would be acceptable. I smiled very sweetly and said, no. The cops nodded and began rushing all the guys to grab their things and leave the room. The ex-boyfriend was the last one out of the door, carrying his 2 bags and complaining that he wasn't even given a luggage cart and had to carry his own things. His friends all looked pissed at him. When I got back to the lobby, my coworker told me how the woman is all settled in her new room and loves it, although she did say no to the champagne. She just wants to sleep. I didn't get to see her before she left town the next day, but her ex-boyfriend tried calling our hotel to complain a number of times, and even tried to leave some bad reviews of us online, lying through all of it. I hope she doesn't ever have to deal with him again. Am I the a-hole? My best friend's wife told him that she had an affair with me, posted by a throwaway account. The last 4 days have been the most horrible in my life. I have no idea how to deal with anything, and I wanted to get opinions on what to do next since I always see posts like this on Reddit. My best friend's wife told him that she had an affair with me, which never happened. I, 35 male, have been married to my wife, 35 female, for 8 years. We have 2 wonderful kids. But this is about my friend Josh, 35 male, and his wife Mary, 34 female. I met Josh during my freshman year at college, and we've been friends ever since. We've always had a shared love for tech, and he's always been my go-to guy when I need someone to talk to. Josh started dating Mary 5 years ago. Let's say Mary has a very different set of morals than my wife and me. She's very loud, manipulative, and craves attention. Josh and Mary have been dating on and off for 4 years. They've broken up often, but somehow always ended up back together after a few months. Mary is always the one who breaks up with Josh and then takes him back. I also know that Mary cheated on Josh with at least 2 guys when they were dating, but somehow convinced him that he was not putting enough effort into their relationship. Josh always blames himself as to why Mary isn't happy. My wife also knows all about this and has always kept her distance from Mary. However, we do still see her often during parties with friends. Josh and Mary got married last year. Last month, Josh found out that Mary was cheating on him again and had an affair with one of her co-workers. Josh was completely broken and stayed at our place for a week before going back, confronting Mary and kicking her out of the house. Josh bought the house before marriage and had to get the cops involved to kick her out. From what we know, Mary moved back to her parents' house. I've been helping Josh through the process and filing for divorce. Last Saturday, Mary came to Josh's house to collect her stuff along with her dad. I'd advised Josh to get out of the house when they came, but he wanted to make sure she didn't take anything that didn't belong to her. During her visit, Josh got into a fight with Mary, and Mary told Josh that she had an affair with me while they were married, and we used to do it in their bedroom. This is all 100% false. I've always known that Mary was trouble and kept my distance from her. I feel like she's just trying to hurt Josh by saying that. After that incident, Josh got extremely agitated and came to our house. I saw he was distressed and knew something was wrong. As I opened the door, he started cursing at me and accusing me of sleeping with Mary. Luckily the kids weren't home, but my wife and I were shocked by what he was saying. He tried to punch me, but he just hit my shoulder and I was able to wrestle him onto the ground and calm him. I kept telling him that what Mary said was completely false and that I'd never spent a single minute alone with her in my life. My wife threatened to call the cops and he left. After he left, my wife was completely inconsolable. It took me hours to calm her down and convince her that Mary was just manipulating Josh. I work from home and rarely leave the house without my wife or kids. I think she believes me, but she's been different for the last 4 days. Josh told a lot of my friends that I was having an affair with Mary. He's not taking my calls or my wife's calls. My wife tried to call Mary, but she's not taking our calls either. All of my friends, including Josh, think I'm the biggest a-hole for getting involved with his effing wife. I have no idea how to convince anyone that this is false. I'm just so frustrated. Can anyone please give me advice on what to do next? Add Dangerous 1243 says, consult with a lawyer. Ask if you have a case to sue Mary for defamation. I'm serious. She's telling lies that you should be able to prove are false, and she's doing measurable damage to your life and reputation. If a lawyer thinks you have a case, you should file ASAP. I think this is a great idea because it will probably scare Mary into admitting the truth. It's crazy how everyone knows that Mary has a long history of lying and manipulating, and they still believe her over OP. She's clearly just trying to destroy Josh's support system and cause the maximum amount of hurt. And it sounds like it's working. My fiance proposed to me, but it turns out the ring is fake. He bought a name brand box off eBay, posted by I Know a Cheap Ass. So, my fiance Mark, 30 male, and I, 25 female, have been together for 2 years. 2 months ago, he asked me to marry him and gave me a beautiful Cartier engagement ring. I was really excited, and of course, I said yes. It was a beautiful ring, and I was excited to be marrying the man I love. The other day, Mark and I worked together. I overheard 2 co-workers talking about Mark. Someone mentioned that Mark makes so much money, but he didn't even buy his girlfriend a real ring. The person asked for clarification, and it turns out that Mark bought a Cartier box off eBay, then bought a CZ ring to put in the box. I just googled it, and a CZ is basically a fake diamond. I didn't want to believe it. Then I took my ring to a jeweler to get it checked. My ring is essentially worthless. It isn't anywhere near a real diamond. Mark is away on business right now. I'm so upset that I haven't answered any of his calls or texts. I don't know what to say. Am I wrong for being this upset? I'm honestly starting to think that this is a deal breaker. He's so cheap and stingy with his money. But at least I thought he'd buy me a good ring when I know he can afford it. What should I do? Too long didn't read. My boyfriend bought me a fake engagement ring and put it in a Cartier box to pass it off. Bragged to people we work with about what he did. I'm hurt and furious and honestly considering throwing that fake cheap ring at his face. Down in the comments, Big B says, Mark, let's go get the ring appraised for insurance purposes. It's so beautiful. I want to make sure it's protected. Then, watch as his world burns around him. Riari says, hold up, he's bragging about tricking you to people at work? Lord have mercy, is this fool stupid? He must be, because anyone that's worked in an office knows that gossip spreads like wildfire. Not only is he stupid, but he's a scammer with no respect for your intelligence. That ain't love. Is he seriously 30 damn years old? Ditch this loser, he ain't worth it. And when he asks you why, tell him you want someone that will take you seriously, not an effing clown. Update. I'm not a selfish or materialistic person. I just expect honesty from my future spouse. Nothing more, nothing less. I haven't taken a dime from Mark. Everything nice that I have was paid for by me. I don't need to be with him for his money because I have my own. What I do want is consideration and thoughtfulness from my partner, not lies. If he'd even got me something that was made from silver with my birthstone, I'd have accepted it because at least it came from the heart and showed some thought behind it. I did not, in any way, shape or form, demand a brand name ring or any sort of ridiculously expensive ring. Anyway, long story short, I finally answered Mark's calls and kept it as calm as I could. I told him that I wanted to take an insurance policy out on the ring because it was very valuable and I was taking it to an appraiser. Mark immediately shut up and told me that I shouldn't do that until he got back, that he already had a warranty in place at the jeweler, and that I shouldn't make big decisions without him. After he stopped spouting off reasons, I told him it was too late. I already took the ring to a jeweler and knew that not only was it a worthless piece of glass, but also silver-plated. The bastard stammered, and the only intelligent thing that came out of his mouth was, "You took it to a real jeweler?" Huge fight over finances, selfishness, and lying ensued. He accused me of being a gold digger, and I refuted this by asking him to try and remember the last time I ever made him pay for anything or buy me anything. He had no answer. I said, I want no part of something based on a lie, and hung up. I switched my Facebook status from engaged to single. Oh, and changed the locks on our apartment and gave our dog to my sister to make sure that he didn't try to keep him. I paid for the dog and all of his shots. He'll have a fun time trying to get in when he comes back from his travel. Edit, realised that I need to give the idiot a written letter that says he has 30 days to vacate. I'm giving him the letter the second he walks in. We'll give him a spare key if he insists on staying. Darn! Would I be the a-hole if I refused to give my fiancé money ever again? Posted by a throwaway account. My fiancé and I have 2 kids. We agreed that I'd stay home and care for them until they both go off to school. He'd pay all the bills and such since it'd be a lot cheaper for me to stay at home versus sending our disabled child into daycare. For Christmas, I received some money from my dad, which he told me to spend on myself and the kids. My fiancé found out about this money and asked to borrow it. I told him that I didn't really want to since we needed diapers and wipes and other stuff for our kids, and I planned on buying those with the money my dad gave me. My mum ended up buying them as a late gift. My fiancé decided to write out a contract that stated that he legally had to pay me back in 2 weeks. I added in that if he couldn't pay it by his own deadline, then he owed an additional $100. He agreed to that. He signed the contract and marked it with a thumbprint and everything. The first deadline he paid $5 of the $125 he owed me by then. The second deadline, 2 weeks later, he told me that he just can't pay it back and is saying that partners don't do this and that they're supposed to help each other out. I told him that it was his idea for the contract and that he agreed to both terms. It's even on video him signing, by the way. The thing is, I wouldn't be so pressed about being paid back if the day I lent him money, he didn't decide to buy $60 worth of weed instead of paying his car note like he said he would. He's saying I should be more than glad to help a partner who's struggling, which I would be if he wouldn't spend his bill money on weed and the lottery. So I told him either he can pay back the full amount of $225 that he agreed to pay me, or he'll get absolutely nothing from me ever again. I have zero income. The money I get is gifted to me by my family, or on the rare occasion, from him. I've been trying to find a work-from-home job, but I haven't found one that I qualify for yet. And since he doesn't work a regular job, I can't just work on his off hours, as he doesn't have a set schedule. Some days he works mornings, some days he works nights, and he doesn't know until the day of or the day before. Am I the a-hole here? Love how he says, this isn't what partners do to each other, while he's taking money meant for diapers to spend on weed. What a selfish prick. There's some interesting points being brought up in the comments about how the fiancé is meant to be providing and covering bills, but clearly isn't, as she needs to spend gift money on diapers. Laidback Beach says, No, her father did not say, spend it on the family. He specifically excluded the fiancé, which, to me, means the father knows what's up at home. Scary Butterscotch 474 says, Dad knows what's going on, and OP still gave the money to a fiancé. Read the room, OP! Also, him working to supposedly provide for the family is the reason she can't work. But he's not providing for the family. Sounds like she'd literally be better off as a single mother. Edit to add context. When he and I first got together, he was doing a lot better financially. He wasn't spending his money on weed nearly as much as he is now. He was actually providing it first. Even when we had our first kid 4 years ago, he was still pretty good. We planned on stopping at one kid until our eldest was much older, so I'd gotten on birth control, not long after having our eldest. My birth control ended up failing, and I found out that I was pregnant too late to do anything about it. At the time, things were still doing a lot better than they are now, so I figured things would stay good after having our second. While I was pregnant with our youngest, our eldest became disabled. She suffered a terrible fall that drastically changed everything for us. She's been in and out of the hospital more times than I can even count. It was sudden and unexpected. She was already receiving Medicaid, so medical bills thankfully aren't an issue. But her disability has still taken its toll on everyone. When he asked to borrow the $125, I told him no at first, but he kept insisting that he'd lose his car if he didn't make the car payment. It wasn't until he answered a FaceTime call from his dealer, with me sitting right next to him, that I found out that he used $60 of the $125 to buy weed. In the comments, I saw someone say that I smoke too. I don't. I tried weed once when I was like 20, and I hated it. I told my fiancé that I was okay with him smoking, as long as it didn't interfere with necessities, even before having kids with him. He seemed to be on board with that for years and years, and then it's like a flip switched. I still don't mind him smoking, just as long as our family needs are met first. I also saw some people suggesting to do Uber Eats and stuff like that. I definitely would, but we're a one-car family, and he always has the car when he works. Otherwise, I'd be out there doing deliveries. I have applied for disability, but the process is still going on, so we haven't received any payment yet. I do try to do surveys to make a little extra money every chance I get, but I'm going to look into some of the other work from home suggestions some of you had and try to get one ASAP. I receive WIC and IP, so I buy most of the food. He buys anything extra and pays the rest of the bills, or rather, he's supposed to. He doesn't tell me much about his finances, so I don't know exactly how much money's coming in and how much the bills are. When I ask him, he gets pretty angry, so I just drop the subject. A lot of you people also suggested that I should leave him. I know that's probably for the better, but it's hard when you still love someone. He was a great partner for years before we had our first, and he was a great father for a while after having our first. I don't want to just throw that all away. I hope after seeing the comments, she seriously reevaluates the relationship because he is not that great partner anymore. He's now the partner that steals from his family to buy weed and gamble. If there's any hope, he needs to acknowledge that he has a problem and agree to her managing the finances going forward. This guy is such a jerk. It'd be nice if he was scrolling through Reddit one day, only to come across a post from OP telling him she's divorcing him. Just like what OP does in the next video. He never saw it coming. Click here to watch. And thanks for watching.